I would now like to introduce our first speaker for the second session, Arun Sasi, Property and Casualty Risk Manager for AXA Insurance Gulf BSC. Arun has been in medium and large enterprise risk management in the insurance industry for a decade. During this time, Arun has conducted a broad range of risk engineering activities in the Middle East and now the UAE and Qatar portfolios, and is actively involved in administering the Risk Engineering Forum. Arun's presentation will provide an understanding of getting to know what a risk engineer does, testing and certifications, common issues seen at sites, and future initiatives. So I'd like to welcome Arun to the stage. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Peter, for that wonderful introduction and for inviting me onto this. Just 1 second, yeah, and for inviting me onto this particular session. Good afternoon to all. I have to also thank Philip, Sarah, and the rest of the team for doing such a wonderful job with the show. So today, I'm going to look at testing and certification. I won't be discussing any of the codes. These are matters which are being dealt with a lot of the colleagues who are present at these sessions. I want to see how it has helped the insurance sector move forward in processing business faster. Now, when I look at this topic, I realize almost all the parameters that I work with has some sort of testing and certification involved, whether it be machinery, whether it be fire equipment, whether it be construction. So I thought I'll give you a small overview of what we do, so you understand what a risk engineer does. And let me go ahead with that. Now, what you would notice is you would have probably
in presentation mode. It's not yet in presentation mode. It'll be better.
Oh, I am in presentation mode. Just 1 second.
Yeah, so we can see it in single mode. So you can share and just hit that little button on the bottom for
the. Okay, so if I do share, can you see it right now?
We can see it, and you can probably on the bottom right, that little symbol, you can put it into full presentation mode. Yeah, right there.
It's working?
Not yet.
Oh, that's
maybe if you're using two screens, that could be.
No, just one screen. Just 1 second. Is it better now?
Perfect. There it is. Yes.
Okay. So I was trying to share that particular window. Okay. So getting back. Yeah. So risk management is a buzzword that I'm sure most of you have heard about in the past 2 decades, usually related with the finance element of a business. Risk engineering solutions have slowly started coming up. Almost all large insurance companies nowadays have one form or the other of risk management solutions, and it's across all lines of business. You name the line, and there is some sort of mitigating risk, trying to reduce claims that the insurance company tries to get involved in. Now, I won't bore you with the list of solutions, but today, since we're looking at specifically fire, and from a property perspective, these are generally the parameters that we assess when we go for a, it's a broad spectrum. Generally, these 8 parameters kind of cover the entire risk in question, generally speaking. Obviously, there are unique risks where more information must be required from other parameters. And if you look at it, probably 7 out of the 8 parameters have some sort of testing certifications that we look at, whether it be from a risk management point of view. Passive construction has been talked to death over the past decade or so here, machinery and such. So now, when we visit a site, the goal that we have generally is to assist the business owner with trying to observe the shortcomings of the risk. So it could be that from a design point of view, there's an issue, from an installation point of view, or from a maintenance point of view. And what we try to do is to provide the client with a way to overcome this one way or the other, obviously looking into the cost factor. Now, when we go to these sites, there are a lot of challenges that we face. Implementation and maintenance will be two of the key issues that we always see at site. So you would have a site which has products which are tested and certified, or systems in place which are certified, but the implementation may be poor. Or you have implementation done, but they don't maintain that implementation across the period of time. Normalization of deviance. This is a topic that Manuel Elric, I believe, spoke about in quite a bit of length in one of the previous sessions. And this is an issue that I keep seeing at a lot of sites. Just to give you an example, unfortunately, I didn't have a photograph of this. I had gone to visit one of my clients, and what had turned up was it's a warehousing risk. And I walk past a corner of racks, and I see a man on top of a forklift, just like how you see it in the picture. He is cross-checking a couple of numbers at the top rack, which is probably 6-7 meters high. No safety procedures have been involved. Now, the thing is, the site has all the requisite certifications. I know for a fact they have a fire safety officer. They have audits which happen. But then what happens with risk generally is that most of them are not very frequent. So maybe 9 times out of 10, the person will have no issues. Will look at the numbers, will come back down, and he saved himself 15 minutes. In the off chance that he did fall down, you have an employee who could die, who could be hurt to the point where he would not be able to work. And it is also an effect on the business itself. The associated issues that come with not following the safety, say whether it is from a point of view of inspections from third parties, whether the police getting involved, these are problems that the client would face. So this normalization of deviance is something which I have seen at many places. They have the systems that have been implemented, but over a period of time, because the personnel themselves don't see the risk, they take shortcuts, and this leads generally to your larger claims. Like I think they have discussed this in length in the previous sessions. Now, testing and certifications. For us, we look at it from almost every aspect. In this particular session, we generally talk about installations and external wall systems, fire equipment, but then you have testing and certification for the electrical systems, for the transformers, for material handling and machinery, because that forms such a large part of many of the risks that I visit. And the turnaround time for a risk engineer generally visiting one of these sites and coming back to the processing, the code and the business aspect of it is very short. Now, it would be very difficult for us to go to a site and spend days on end trying to figure out whether the systems in place are actually up to a code or up to a standard. Now, that's where I think testing and certification come into a huge play for us. We are able to take these documents, whether it be done by Thomas Wellwright or UL or Warrington, any one of them, we're able to look at this and figure out whether the site actually conforms with the standards that they talk about. Now, today, I would obviously skip a lot of this stuff. I will just talk about insulation and fire equipment. Now, 2017, as Abhishek said, was quite a pivotal year because the fires that happened the decade earlier, DCD reviewed and revised their code, and they have come with a fantastic set of requirements, which not only enable us, because as a risk engineer, I see the kind of information that has been available to me prior to 2017 and post 2017. One of the most important things would be that the technical specifications of the cladding is almost available with every client. Fire testing information, obviously, for the newer sites is available. But now, the clients take a concerted effort to get the technical specifications of the cladding, even if it was installed in 2010 or 11, because that helps us create a better assessment. What happened before that, if you don't have the information, was we just assumed it to be combustible, which I don't think benefits either the client or the insurance company. Another thing that I have noticed is the fire systems being installed. So you have FM approved, UL listed fire pumps, which are generally installed in accordance with an FBA guidelines. The new set of industrial areas, we see this quite a lot, especially if the client is building a site for themselves. We know generally that it is installed in concert with the kind of the storage or the occupancy that they have. So the sprinkler system usually is actually effective. But one of the bigger problems that we see is with the leased warehouses, because even though they have been taken at a particular standard, what happens is if the client is not storing or has material which is being stored which does not come up to the standard of the fire system, the possibility of the sprinkler being effective reduces a lot. So another thing is the fire training. So I don't know, I'm sure most of you who've run businesses here would have had a requirement from civil defense that their personnel, usually a certain percentage of the personnel, need to be trained in firefighting. And this has helped raise awareness, because I think that's one of the key issues that we face at site, raising awareness amongst the staff of the client. They need to understand what the risk is at hand, which a lot of them don't. So now the 2 points that we look at is facade from passive protection and active protection. And these are the 2 big concerns that we have that we generally discuss. The facade, the sandwich panels, I think the revised code has taken care of a lot of those issues. So has the fire pumps and the design, which includes all the elements of the sprinklers and pipes and the fittings. I think Terry had a question arise, which was, how do you protect the umpteen number of buildings that are here, which are not up to the code, which currently exists? And this is a concern as a risk engineer that I face every day. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you some of the issues that I see at site and give you a few stories behind them. This whole presentation is to start a conversation more than trying to explain anything from a code point of view. So now this is an example of an electrical room where you see that the particular cable tray is not protected. They've used a foam system to protect it, and there has been a leak. Now, the issue is that the client is kind of aware of the situation, but the responsibility is not being taken up. It may be due to various factors, cost, time, and everything of that sort. Just explaining the part where cable penetration, duct penetration, and piping penetration, not just across firewalls, which are concrete walls with a specific definition, also across sandwich panels, especially the older sections, older buildings, which have combustible core insulations. So you can see very clearly that the insulation material that is used is not fire resistive. It's usually polyurethane foam, which you get in a can from the local markets. Now, again, as you can see, there has been some repairs done to even the polyurethane foam that they have used, and they have not bothered to fix it. In many of these situations, what happens is the cables lead directly into the factory, which means a fire starting in the electrical room can happily spread into the factory or the warehouse in question. So this is one of the issues with the combustible core that I've seen. So as you can see, in this particular situation, the owner of the building has cut the sandwich panel to make some changes which happened post-construction. I'll show you another picture which is a little more clearer. Now, this is what has been done. So you've got multiple areas where the sandwich panel is exposed. Any fire that starts within the factory or even externally can easily spread into the wall. And the wall being combustible, once it spreads to the wall, the sprinkler system, however well designed, usually turns out to be ineffective because the fire spreads to the top of the sprinkler system, which it cannot fight. Now, this is a concern which I think I've seen in many places. This is the newer set of places are actually having either 3M certified or Hilti material, which is used for like 2 hours fire rating for cable penetration and duct penetration. Just to give you an example, this is one of the poorer ones, but I've seen really good, well set up, penetration protection, which has happened. Now, another part, the fire pumps. So obviously, because of the new Civil Defense Code, you've got everyone installing FM-approved dual-listed fire pumps, which is a great fact. But then this is a fire pump that's around 8 years old, right? So it's run a span of around 4 hours. Now, the reliability of this fire pump is hugely in question because an example for if you were to have a diesel car and if you run it 4 hours in a span of 8 years, would you really take it for a long drive? There is going to be issues that exist in the background that possibly cannot be seen until you do a proper test of the system. So this is something that I see very often because the current requirement is for approved contractors to do maintenance on these fire pumps quarterly. And what I have seen as a market practice, a few of the places that I've been to, is that they literally start the fire pump, they switch it off, and hence why it takes 8 years to achieve a paltry 4 hours of runtime. This is again a site where the fire pump had been serviced. You could clearly see there is corrosion in the gland packing. In many of the cases, I see flooding from the gland packing. So these mean that your fire pump is not going to function in accordance with the design. So as a client, you might be thinking, I've already paid for the contractor to come in and visit the site and maintain my equipment. But then, in the event of a fire, if the pump doesn't function, all of this kind of becomes a moot point. This is one of the older fire pumps that I've seen in one of the sites. These are the times when this is before the FM approved listed pumps came into the picture. So you can see that it doesn't have the information. You will not have a speedometer. You will not have a odometer. None of those systems are in place. You will see that the diesel container doesn't have spill protection, uses a rubber tubing which goes over the electric motor as well as the batteries. The risk here is quite high. Now, in this particular case, the pumps were off. They were not functional, and they have not been maintained in quite a long time. But if the client is under the impression that they have a sprinkler system and they have a pump connected to it, and that it should ideally protect them, they're in for a surprise, because come a situation, if there is a fire, these pumps will not function, and the fire could most likely take down the entire property. Okay, so this is a case where I wanted to come from earlier. So this is the sprinkler heads which are UL listed, FM approved. It's a Tyco ESFR. Very clearly, they have written what the K factor is, what the temperatures are. Now, this is a good sprinkler head. Now, it so happened that when I did visit one of my clients, they had a setup in which I could actually go ahead and see the sprinkler heads. So the first set of sprinkler heads I saw was this one. So it's a Tyco sprinkler head, and the spare sprinklers that were installed at the site also were Tyco sprinkler heads. But then, since I was curious and I moved around, I did find another sprinkler head which didn't have any such information, and apparently is certified by a Chinese standard. Now, I was under the impression that this was fake, and the client got the contractor to come in. They did an entire review of the sprinkler system. Turns out, out of the 200 or so sprinkler heads that they have in place, around 60 of them, the contractor had installed with these Chinese sprinkler heads. Now, I don't want to question the quality of it, but the fact is that they had paid for Tyco. They got a Chinese system installed, and there is no guarantee that this would work exactly how the Tyco one is supposed to work. So this is a problem. Very difficult usually to find, because not every client we can actually go and visit the sprinkler heads. If there are a few sprinkler heads that come in which are fake or which are not in tune with the spec or the design, it would be difficult for us to find out. And if there is a fire, in all likelihood, the sprinklers will be overwhelmed and could lead to a loss of the entire property. Now, this is just an example of an FM approved UL listed pump. It has a nice little metal plate with all the information that I require, which helps me in figuring out what the design standard is. So, all right, now this one is just a pure example of a predictive maintenance practice. So on the left, you see a picture which has been taken by a thermal imaging camera of an electrical system. Now, if you go to most clients, they'll be like, yes, we have, electrical inspections which happen daily, probably monthly. And it turned out, as you can see in this picture, that a rat had managed to get in through the system, got electrocuted, increased the temperature of the set of fuses. But it wasn't bad enough that it caused a short circuit. So this is a fire that is waiting to happen, and the client wouldn't know about it till they had done either a daily inspection or an inspection using a thermal imaging camera. Now, from future initiatives point of view, this is more like a small set of wish list that I have. I'm sure if you speak to other risk engineers, they'd have a lot more. I think fire pump testing, currently being done only quarterly, this is something which I think needs to be done in accordance with NFPA guidelines. The electric pump being tested monthly for 10 minutes and the diesel pump being tested weekly for 30 minutes. The fire pumps are a very expensive piece of equipment, and I think maintaining it is beneficial for the client because these are supposed to last 25 to 40 years. They are not pumps that are expected to be changed after 5 years or 6 years. So I think fire pump testing, fire pump performance testing, which is again a way to figure out if the performance of the fire pump has gone down. This can be usually done only with the FM approved or UL listed pumps, because you need flow meters, and but you need to compare. So even if I do a fire pump performance test, I need to compare it with the original curve that came from the factory. A lot of the clients that I visit never have the original curve as provided by the manufacturer. Another thing is we are still using combustible core stainless panels. Now, this is again just a pure, wish perspective. I really wish, the sidewalls of industrial and warehousing risks, as well as roofing, become actively non-combustible, material. This is about it. Thank you so much for listening to me. I think I will give my